I used to think I knew my neighborhood. We waved to each other, kept our lawns neat, had the usual block parties in the summer. We watched each other's kids when someone was running late. It wasn't perfect, but it felt safe. And then, the truth crawled out from behind one locked door and ripped that illusion to shreds. This is the story of the house I walked past almost every day, and the 3 women who vanished into it for over a decade. I saw things. I heard things. But I never, not once, imagined the nightmare that was unfolding less than 50 feet from my front porch. Michelle Knight went missing first. It was August 2002, and I remember seeing her face on the missing posters taped to telephone poles. She was small, quiet, not the kind of person you'd think would make headlines. The police said she might have run away, maybe because of family trouble. People whispered, shook their heads, moved on. Then came Amanda Berry. That one hit different. She disappeared the night before her birthday in 2003. I remember the search parties, the candlelight vigils, her mother on TV begging for her return. The air in our neighborhood felt heavier after that. Parents kept their kids closer. In 2004, Gina DeJesus vanished on her way home from school. She was just 14. That was the moment people started whispering about a serial kidnapper. But the police insisted the cases weren't connected. I didn't know it yet, but all 3 girls were already less than a block from my living room. If you'd asked me back then who could do something like that, I never would have guessed Ariel Castro, a school bus driver, a bass player in a band. He'd wave when you drove past, joke with the guys in the yard. Sometimes I'd see him working on his motorcycle in the driveway, radio blaring old rock songs. His house looked ordinary from the outside. White siding, a small porch, a chain-link fence that could have used a little fixing. Nothing about it screamed danger. But inside, the windows were boarded up from the inside. Doors were reinforced. There were locks on locks on locks. One summer evening, I was out watering my lawn when I saw movement in his upstairs window. Just a quick flicker, a girl's face, pale and thin. She looked at me, and for half a second, I swear our eyes locked. Then she vanished from view. I told myself I'd imagined it, or maybe it was one of his daughters visiting. I didn't want to believe anything else. Sometimes, late at night, when the street was quiet, you could hear strange noises coming from Castro's house. A metallic clank, a muffled thud. Once, I could have sworn I heard someone crying, but he always had an explanation if you asked. Oh, that? Just fixing the pipes. Banging? Yeah, band practice in the basement. He had this way of laughing and looking you in the eye that made you feel like the crazy one for even asking. Years blurred. The missing girls' faces faded from the posters. Some neighbors moved away. New ones came in, never knowing what secrets that little white house held. But the women inside never stopped dreaming of freedom. It was May 6th, 2013. A Monday. I was sitting in my living room with the window cracked when I heard shouting outside. Not just shouting, screaming. Urgent. Panicked. At first, I thought it was a fight. But then I heard words. Help me. Please. I ran to the porch, and there she was, Amanda Berry. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn, her eyes wide with a desperation I can't put into words. She was pounding on the front door of Castro's house, screaming for someone to break it open. A neighbor, Charles Ramsey, ran across the street and kicked in the lower panel of the door. Amanda squeezed herself through the opening, grabbed her little girl, a child none of us had ever seen before, and yelled into the street. It's me, Amanda Berry. I've been missing for 10 years. For a second, the whole block froze. And then chaos. Sirens. Neighbors rushing out. Police cars swarming in. I stood there, numb, as officers flooded into that house. We all thought Amanda was the only one in there. But minutes later, the front door burst open again. Out came Gina DeJesus, clinging to an officer like she'd never let go. And then Michelle Knight. She was thinner, older, almost unrecognizable. Her steps were unsteady, like she wasn't used to walking freely. I swear, the air on our street changed in that moment, like someone had cracked open a tomb. The police didn't let us near, but I could see them moving from room to room upstairs. Later, I'd hear about what they found. Padlocked doors, windows covered in heavy curtains, chains bolted to walls. One officer came out onto the porch, his face pale, and whispered something to another cop. I'll never forget that look. Like whatever he'd just seen would haunt him forever. It wasn't until the next day that the real gut punch landed. Rumors had already started that there were secret rooms, hidden passageways. But then word got out about the basement. Police said it was like something out of a horror movie. Chains, stained mattresses, buckets in the corners, and a soundproof room where the women had been kept when Castro had company. But there was one thing the news never officially confirmed, something only a few of us on the block knew. When they went down there, they found a small, locked freezer. It wasn't plugged in, and inside, well, the official report said it was evidence. But one of the officers, a guy I'd known since high school, told me quietly, "You don't want to know." After Castro's arrest, the women began rebuilding their lives. Amanda reunited with her family. Gina went back to school. Michelle spoke publicly about her ordeal. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. A few months after the rescue, I was in my backyard late one evening. I heard something faint coming from the direction of Castro's now vacant house. It sounded like humming, a slow, sad melody, the kind you'd hum to comfort a child. The house was supposed to be empty. No electricity, no furniture. The city had even put boards over the windows. I told myself it was just the wind. But the next morning, I walked past, and on the porch railing, there was something I'd never seen before. A single, fresh white ribbon tied in a bough. No one ever claimed it. When the Castro house was finally demolished, the city treated it like a cleansing. People cheered. Some cried. The mayor swung the first hammer, and by the end of the day, it was nothing but rubble. But tearing down a building doesn't erase the shadows it cast. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Ariel Castro was not a supernatural monster. He was a man, an ordinary man. And that's what makes it terrifying. For 10 years, he hid those women in plain sight, in a neighborhood where kids rode bikes, where families grilled burgers in the summer, where I waved to him more times than I can count. If he could do it, so could someone else. Right now, as you're watching this, there could be another locked door, another covered window, another street where everyone thinks they know their neighbors, but they don't. And maybe, just maybe, there's another voice calling for help, but it's buried so deep, no one hears it. The police tell us to stay alert, to report anything suspicious. But that's the problem, isn't it? Suspicious doesn't always look suspicious, not until it's too late. Sometimes I still think about that white ribbon. Sometimes I wonder if it was a goodbye. And sometimes, I wonder if it was a warning. Fade out.